Good morning. I hope you're all up for a pre-4th of July poetry reading session. So far, the YouTube people are not censoring my program, but I suppose that'll be just a matter of time. I've got several excellent poems I'd like to read today, and they're from the New Yorker Book of Poetry, which was published in 1969. I bought it that year, I think, and it includes 900 of the best poems appearing in the New Yorker between 1925 and 1969. I'd like to show you the cover of this book. Here it is. The book weighs 3.5 pounds, as you can imagine, holding 900 poems as it does. And it is a wonderful repository of poetry. I paid $10 for this book. The way I know that is because it's the price listed on the flyleaf of the book. And it just goes to show that books can appreciate in monetary value, because I suspect that, at least among knowledgeable people, many would be willing to pay at least $10 for it today. So cars don't do that, just books. While I give books as presents, I certainly rarely ever toss one out. I guess I'm a book hoarder, but after all, that puts me in the same category as a public library, doesn't it? Or the university library. But on to the poems. Since some of the poems are longer than usual, we may have to make 2 morning gems out of today's selection, but that's okay. I'll give you my email address at the end of the reading, plus my phone number, should you prefer to text me and make any suggestions about poetry that you'd like. I do hear from some people, but I know these are people who have my email address, but I don't know that everybody in this coterie of listeners does have it. So let's start with a poem by E.B. White of Charlotte's Web fame, which was first published in the New Yorker, and it's titled, "I Paint What I See." And in this poem, you'll quickly recognize the main characters. The subtitle of the poem is "A Ballad of Artistic Integrity." We'll see. "What do you paint when you paint on a wall?" said John Dee's grandson, Nelson. "Do you paint just anything there at all? Will there be any doves or a tree in the fall, or a hunting scene like an English hall?" "I paint what I see," said Rivera. "What are the colors you use when you paint?" said John Dee's grandson, Nelson. "Do you use any red in the beard of a saint? If you do, is it terribly red or faint? Do you use any blue? Is it Prussian?" "I paint what I paint," said Rivera. "Whose is that head that I see on my wall?" said John Dee's grandson, Nelson. "Is it anyone's head whom we know at all? A Rensselaer or a Saltonstall? Is it Franklin D? Is it Mordaunt Hall? Or is it the head of a Russian?" "I paint what I think," said Rivera. "I paint what I paint. I paint what I see. I paint what I think," said Rivera. "And the thing that is dearest in life to me is the bourgeois hall of integrity. However, I'll take out a couple of people drinking and put in a picture of Abraham Lincoln. I could even give you McCormick's Reaper and still not make my art much cheaper. But the head of Lenin has got to stay, or my friends will give me the bird today. The bird, forever. It's not good taste in a man like me, said John Dee's grandson, Nelson, to question an artist's integrity or mention a practical thing like a fee. But I know what I like to a large degree, though art I hate to hamper. For 21,000 conservative bucks, you painted a radical. I say, shucks. I never could rent the offices, the capitalistic offices, for this, as you know, is a public hall, and people want doves or a tree in the fall, and though your art I dislike to hamper, I owe a little to God and Gramper, and after all, it's my wall. We'll see if it is, said Rivera. The story behind that poem is that the main points in it did happen. Nelson Rockefeller hired Diego Rivera, the Mexican leftist painter. He should have known what he was going to get. To paint a mural on a building, and he put in some characters, including Lenin, that Nelson Rockefeller could hardly abide. And so this became a cause célèbre in the newspapers of the time, and E.B. White had a lot of fun with this poem, I Paint What I See. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I'm going to move on now to the next one, which is a lot of fun, and it is called A Lesson in Handwriting by a poet whose name is Alastair Reid. And it's his idea of how to teach handwriting. Try first this figure 2, how from the point of the pen clockwise it unwinds itself downward to the line, making itself a pedestal to stand on. Watch now. Before your eyes it becomes a swan drifting across the page, its neck so carefully poised, its inky eye lowered in modesty. As you continue, soon, between the thin blue lines, swan after swan sails beautifully past you, margin to margin, 2 by 2 by 2, a handwritten swirl of swans. Under them now unroll the soft, curled pillows of the 6s, the acrobatic 3s, the angular 7s, the hourglass 8s, and the neat tadpole 9s, each passing in review on stilts or wheels or platforms in copybook order. Turn the page, for now comes the alphabet, an eccentric parade of odd characters. If at first you tangle, now and again, in a loop or a twirl, no matter, each in time will dawn as faces and animals do, familiar, laughable, crooked, quirky. Begin with the letter S. Already it twists away from the pen like a snake or a watch spring, coiled up and back to strike. Shh, it says, hissing and slithering off into the ferns of the F's. Follows a line of stately Q's floating just off the ground, tethered by their tails. Over the folded arms of the W's and the akimbo M's, open-eyed. The O's roll after them like bubbles blown away. Feel how the point curls around them lovingly after the serious three-tongued ease. See how the page fills up with all the furniture of writing, the armchair H's, the ladders and trestles of A's and Y's and X's, the T-shaped tables, and the upholstered B's. The pen abandons a whole scaffolding of struts and braces, springs and balances, on which will rest eventually the weight of a written world, story on story of words and vows, all the long drawn-out telling that pens become repositories of. These are now your care, and you may give them whatever slant or human twist you wish, if it should please you, but you will not alter their scrawled authority, durable as stone, silent, grave, oblivious to all you make them tell. Tomorrow, words begin. That's a great poem. It's got a lot of humor in it, but it's absolutely true. And don't you wish you had a teacher teaching you the alphabet, teaching you to write, who had the poetical presence of Alastair Reid? Well, that's probably asking too much. But anyway, that's Alastair Reid's poem, A Lesson in Handwriting. And I think after all the years of handwriting, which I've pretty much given up now, I'm typing everything on a computer, no less, still, it is fun to think about handwriting and writing your poems that way. And I must tell you that Billy Collins, one of our great poems of today, still writes his drafts in text with a pen or even a pencil. Now, we're going to move on to a different poem here. We don't want to use up all of our time discussing the poems we've already had, which are pretty interesting, but also pretty self-explanatory. The next poem is also by E.B. White, but as I mentioned, I really didn't pick it because it was his. I picked it because of its subject, which is titled A Listener's Guide to the Birds. And its epigram is, after a binge with Roger Tory Peterson in his famous guidebook. And I'll have to apologize in advance if I don't get the bird calls quite right. You can practice your own versions. Wouldst know the lark? Then hark. Each natural bird must be seen and heard. The lark's tee is a tinkling entreaty, but it's not always tee. Sometimes it's tee. So watch yourself. Birds have their love and mating song, their warning cry, their hating song. Some have a night song, some a day song, a lilt, a tilt, a come what may song. Birds have their careless bow and teeter song, and of course, their Roger Tory Peter song. The studious ovenbird, pale pinkish legs, calls, teacher, teacher, teacher. The chestnut-sided warbler begs to see Miss Beecher. I want to see Miss Beecher. Sometimes interpreted as, please, please, please to meet ya. The redwing blackbird, frequents swamps and marshes, gurgles Conclary, eliciting from the wood duck the exclamation, gee! But that's the male wood duck, remember. If it's his wife you seek, wait till you hear a distressed woo-week, woo-week. Nothing is simpler than telling a barn owl from a veery. One says, ksh, in a voice that is eerie. The other says, veer, in a manner that is breezy. I told you it was easy. On the other hand, distinguishing between the veery and the olive-backed thrush is another matter. It couldn't be worse. This thrush's song is similar to the veery's, only it's in reverse. Let us suppose you hear a bird say, Fitzbew. The things you can be sure of are two. First, the bird is an older flycatcher. Amphidonox tralei tralei. Second, you are standing in Ohio. Or, as some people call it, oh-hee-oh. Because although it may come as a surprise to you, the alder flycatcher in New York or New England does not say Fitzbew. It says wee-beal. Choo-choo-choo is the note of the harrier, copied, of course, from our common carrier. The osprey, thanks to a lucky fluke, avoids choo-choo and cries chook, chook, so there's no difficulty there. The chickadee likes to pronounce his name. It's extremely helpful and adds to his fame. But in spring you could get the heebie-jeebies untangling chickadees from Phoebes. The chickadee, when he's all afire, whistles Phoebe to express desire. He should be arrested and thrown in jail for impersonating another male. There's a way you can tell which bird is which, but just the same, it's a nasty switch. Our gay deceiver may fancy-free be, but he never does fool a female Phoebe. Oh, sweet the tandem random sounds of birds, the old squaw practicing his thirds, the distant bittern driving stakes, the lonely loon on haunted lakes, the white-throat's pure and tenuous thread. They go to my heart, they go to my head. How hard it is to find the words with which to sing the praise of birds. Yet birds, when they get singing praises, don't lack for words. They know some daisies. Fitzbew, Kooklari, hip three cheers, Onkalik, ow, 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 cheedle, cheedle, chew, and dozens of other inspired phrases. By E.B. White, who describes himself as having gray cheeks, inconspicuous eye ring, and frequents bars and glades. I think that's a wonderful poem, and maybe you don't like it if you're not a bird lover, and maybe that's why I like it, because I am a bird lover. Yesterday I saw my first hummingbird, the ruby-throated male hummingbird, and it came to the front of my house where I have a cardinal flower with red trumpet-like blooms, and that that bird just about went crazy when he saw that flower, and he attacked it like a lover and got whatever they get out of the flowers that they eat from. So, I promised my email address in case you had any comments to make or any criticisms. Just don't threaten to cancel me. That would be terrible. But the email is jimransom506, 506, jimransom506 at gmail.com. And my phone number, if you want to send a text message, is 785 221 9551. That's 785 221 9551. That's all for now. Watch some fireworks tomorrow if you can. And remember, this is one of the only countries in the world where people are trying to break in, not break out. It's a good thing to remember on the 4th of July, isn't it? Bye now, and I hope to see you again next week.